Okay, so I'm gonna turn it over to Kelly real quick for some information, and then we'll bring it back to me.
All right, hi everyone. Kelly Mary with the Travel Office, if you don't know me already. And so what we're gonna be talking about here is something we're actually pretty excited about. We are gonna be transitioning over to a new email. And so what we're talking about here is our customer service email. Many of you know it right now as traveludub at uw.edu. So just so you know, we will be using this one ongoing. So don't worry, you don't need to switch over to the new one currently. We're actually still working on the administrative side of things. So we're working with UW IT to mirror how we operate things on Travel UW over to the new travel at uw.edu. Many of you may know that the travel at uw.edu was serviced by a travel clinic, a health clinic here on campus. And so we want to thank them for allowing us the opportunity to use it. So we discovered that they actually were not using it anymore due to an issue that they were running into. And so we're excited to switch over to travel at uw.edu. We just believe that it makes a little bit more sense for what we do, a little bit easier to remember. We are the travel office, so we just thought it made sense. So we were excited to find out that we had the opportunity to switch over to that. And as far as moving forward, so we'll be announcing most likely over the listserv when that email is actually ready. So for the time being, please go ahead and email traveluw@uw.edu. Also, when we do switch over to travel at uw.edu, we will have everything forwarded from Travel UW to that email. So we'll be operating both, and then maybe eventually we'll be sunsetting the travel at uw.edu. But just so you know, in the time coming, we'll be announcing that. Firefox. So what we're talking about here is the web browser Mozilla Firefox. If you do not use Firefox, then essentially you can ignore all this. But what we're going to be talking about is some browser issues that we've been running into for Firefox, and this is related to Ariba eTravel. And so what we've been seeing lately, it's become a little bit more of an issue than it has in the past. We've been getting a lot of phone calls and emails about things not showing within eTravel, such as a button you need to click to submit, or something like the meal details button in the meal per diem. And generally what we've been finding is that it is the user is using Firefox as opposed to one of the other recommended browsers that we have. And again, yeah, one of the most common issues is fields not showing. And every time I ask, what web browser are you using? We're finding that the issue is Firefox. And so most of the web browsers do actually work, and they will get the job done. But we are seeing that Firefox is reporting some of these issues. And so because of that, we actually recommend using Google Chrome. It's what we use here in our office. If anybody's ever looking for a recommendation for which browser they should use, Google Chrome is the one that we promote. The reason for that is it is the best supported browser for Ariba eTravel. Has the least amount of bugs and things like that. And so I included some information here on what you can do to assure that you're using the correct version of Google Chrome. If you're using one of the older versions, you would most likely be okay. But we recommend actually going into your Google Chrome and making sure that you are keeping it up to date. And so how you get there is when you're on the Google Chrome browser, in the very top right, there are 3 little dots that are up there, and that's how you get to like the settings and things like that, the history. But at the bottom, there is a button that says about, or it says help. If you click help, then there's another button that says about Google Chrome. And I'm going to show you a little bit of what that looks like on here. And so I just included a couple screenshots so you can see visually what I'm talking about. So again, the 3 little dots, scroll down to the bottom, click the help button, and then click about Google Chrome. And then what it'll do is it'll either report that it's the most up to date or that it's updating. Usually only takes about 30 seconds to a minute. This next section is just a policy reminder. So this is something that we had discussed previously, a little bit of clarification as well as a little bit of a policy update in regards to our receipt policy. And so this change went into effect on August 9th, 2018. If you remember, we had sent out a notice on our listserv regarding this. Looks like there's a question. So just one sec. Are these issues related to a particular version of Firefox? Our team uses Firefox heavily and have not encountered these issues. So yeah, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure, but it tends to be just Firefox in general. We recommend just steering away from it. It's true that, yeah, you could be running a particular version of Firefox that does work just fine. But to avoid some of the issues that we've seen across campus, we would recommend going to Google Chrome. I use it daily and I'm approving expense reports all day long. And I never have any of the issues that I've seen that campus has been reporting to me. So, but if you're a diehard, Firefox fan, you can continue to use it. There's not gonna be any like major issues. It's just we've run into these little bugs where something isn't showing, and then we have them open it up in the web browser into the Google Chrome, and then it appears. So if you would just want to avoid little issues like that, that's why we're recommending Google Chrome as your browser. And so back to the receipt policy change. So again, we had announced this on August 9th, 2018. The reason for this policy change, this was an effort to align policy with process partners for clarification. There was just a little bit of difference in the way that we were just reporting the information. We kind of had the same receipt policy, but we wanted to collaborate and make sure that the language was a little more clear across the board. And so the clarification, on mic here. There we go. And so the clarification part, this was regarding the $75 receipt waiver. Where this receipt waiver comes from is from the state of Washington. We have a waiver with their policy. And so what we wanted to clarify on is that departments should be incorporating this $75 receipt waiver into their internal policy. So before it was part of our receipt policy, and a lot of people were using it. But we wanted to add clarification to make sure that you actually fully adopt that across your department. It's important that it is consistent and that you actually, if you are using the $75 rule, that it is adopted within your internal policies. Another clarification too, which we've definitely gotten questions in the past, is you need to make sure that you include, not just that you're including in your internal policy, but that when you actually are expensing these things, that you have an itemized list of what was purchased, pricing information, and business purpose must be kept on file as supporting documentation. So if anything was ever pulled in an audit and you used the $75 waiver, so it was $35, something like that, an auditor would most likely be still requesting, what was the business purpose of it, what was it spent for, things of that nature. So just keep that in mind when you are using it. Let's see, I got a couple questions. Is the itemized spreadsheet still required for requesting reimbursement for meals paid for others, since the receipt is now not required for meals less than? It's a good question. So correct, if it is under $75, we do not require an itemized receipt for the actual meal purchase. But if you check the policy, we still require documentation substantiating that it is within the allowable per diem for all participants. And so while it's not mandatory that you use the spreadsheet, it is mandatory that you substantiate on the expense report that it is less than what you are reimbursing is less than the allowable per diem for all participants. So it's kind of one of the main purposes of the spreadsheet. We highly recommend using it because it helps with that process. But if you can substantiate that it is within the allowable per diem is the main documentation requirement that we're looking for. Let's see. Just one second. Hold on, I just need to scroll back up. I had another question look like.
Oh, no, I got it.
Okay. And then the next part of the receipt policy change. So this was the actual thing that changed. That $75 waiver was more of a clarification. And so what happened was we removed banquet meal and meals paid for others were removed from the list of expenses requiring a receipt regardless of costs. So for banquet meals, meals paid for others, even if it was $75 previously, we did require an itemized receipt. But now if it is under $75 for those two expenses, as long as you have adopted the $75 waiver, then you're welcome to utilize that. Now I'm going to pass it back over to Robert. He's going to be discussing business intelligence. Thank you, guys.
All right. This is Robert again. Okay, Jimmy, I'll ask Jake about that. Hopefully it won't be an issue going forward. Okay, so this is just some data. So I know you guys have always asked questions about what other people are doing or what else is going on campus. I know that biennium end is coming up soon. I know soon is, I mean, it's quite a ways away, but I'm sure people are already dreading all the work that we have to do for biennium end. So just wanted to show what the average monthly spend is. This is the last 3 years. Okay, so not 2018, because 2018 isn't finished, but 2015 to 2017, you can see average monthly spend for the different payment types. So e-reimbursement, e-travel, P2I, and ProCard/CTA. It is a little interesting because, you know, you would think that there would be more action right before fiscal year end or biennium end. So, but as you can see, it's kind of hard to see where things are actually happening because this is an average. You can also see it here, all stacked together. So overall, as a finance altogether, you know, this is for those 4 different type of payments. This is the aggregate information for all those different months. It isn't very clear as to, you know, where the work is really going on. This is just the spend. In the next slide, you'll see, yes, Angela, that data does include Tacoma and Bothell CTA card spend figures. So this is anything that is processed through Ariba. And then ProCard obviously not processed through Ariba, but this is the spend information. So I know that people always look at the spend information here and they always ask us, okay, where's the down season? Where's the high season? And it's a little misleading, and you'll see in the next slides, it's based on the type of payment. And just taking the average and taking the long view like this is not the best way to figure out where the resources need to be spent to get these payments through. So if you look here at the e-reimbursement spend, this is the same years, 2015 to 2017. And you can see that darker it is in red, that's where the most spend is going through. This is a dollar amount. So you can see for e-reimbursements, is there a pattern? It looks like more like December and January are the high points. So maybe calendar year end. So you can see right here, the fiscal year end and the calendar year end. Obviously, each department will be a little bit different. And I also included the average, the mean, and the standard deviation, so you can kind of see, you know, what kind of workflow it happens on our end. So you can see, like in January, it's over 1 million, you know, so it's quite a few standard deviations away from what they would consider the average. So the average month being $650,000. This is for e-travel. So this one I can speak to a little bit more because we do feel these changes in our office, but it's interesting to note that there is a big drop off after after fiscal year end. So I don't know if this is because people have to get these charges onto the grants and such before it ends at the fiscal year end. But you can clearly see there's a drop off after fiscal year end, after June. Basically $1 million less through our office. So July and August is quite light compared to the rest of the year. And then you'll see at the end of the year in December. So I know some people ask us sometimes if during the holiday season, if we're taking it easy. I know you guys are busy as well because we can see it. You guys are jamming through the expense reports that the faculty and staff have left on your desk to process, right before they leave for winter break. So we do see that. We thought it was actually at fiscal year end. We thought it'd be higher, especially 2015, 2017. Those were also fiscal year ends. But you can see that clearly it's not. It actually is at the end of the calendar year. The same thing with P2I spend. So it's a little bit different. I couldn't make out any patterns here. It kind of jumps around a little bit. It used to be a little bit lighter in the beginning of the calendar year, a little bit heavier in the end of the calendar year. But you can see in 2017, there's been a complete shift, a lot more P2I usage. That could be because of a lot of the new features they've implemented. So maybe a lot more payments are going through P2I. Oh, P2I, I'm sorry, that's payment to individual. And then ProCard CTA. So once again, here are the lines again. You can kind of see it's kind of difficult to determine if there is a pattern, but it does look like January is a high spend month. And so probably a lot of reconciliations at the end of January. Okay, so we'll go into a policy update. This is we've already rolled this out, and so this will be just the new policy going forward. This is just some information on our background for our policy. So the Western Hemisphere Travel Initiative. So I know that people ask us sometimes on the background. Hi, Samir. I don't know exactly. I know that they added some things for foreign travelers through the P2I, but I don't know the exact, what features have made it easier for campus. But I do see them once in a while. I mean, them talking about it once in a while. We're talking about Ariba enhancements. For WHTI, so this gives us the background on what information we need. So the WHTI says for any Canadian citizens, so this is a federal law, that Canadian citizens can present a valid enhanced driver's license or trusted traveler program card or passport, to enter the US. Okay, so I know that our policy has been in the past, you either need a passport because it proves identity and proof of citizenship, or driver's license, just a regular driver's license, and then also proof of citizenship. So like their social benefits card or anything that proves their citizenship. I know we haven't accepted enhanced driver's licenses, but with this information, we've been able to get this approved that we can accept these forms of ID now. So Canadian passport, of course, as usual, which is obviously the easiest. Enhanced driver's license, we'll accept this as well. Just be careful, please, that you don't accept just a regular driver's license. It has to be enhanced. I don't have examples of every single enhanced driver's license from each Canadian province, but there are 2 examples on the next slide. And then trusted traveler program, so Nexus, Fast, and Sentry. They're most likely to have Nexus. I think Sentry is for the same thing as Nexus for Mexico, and Fast, I believe, or one or the other. And then one of them is for moving cargo across borders. So Nexus is generally for travelers like us. And here's some examples. So you guys already know what a Canadian passport looks like. Probably seen a lot of them already. But the top 2 are enhanced driver's licenses. This is off the Canadian websites. This is kind of what they look like. It says enhanced driver's license at the top. So it's clearly stated that it's enhanced, which gives us proof that they are a Canadian citizen. And then on the bottom here, you have Nexus, Fast, and Sentry cards. If you're a Nexus holder, you know that this is kind of what it looks like. If they have a Nexus, Fast, or Sentry card, they probably also have a passport. So you may not even see it. They most likely will just give you their passport. But we're hoping the enhanced driver's license will make it a little bit easier, because we have been asked in the past, and now we have the proof that we can accept it. And one thing to note, this is different than the other policy for honorariums. I know the policy for honorariums is a lot more strict. That is because of the different IRS requirements for that payment. So they're not the same thing. I know people have been asking why they're different. They are different. If you have questions about their policy, you want to talk to PCS help or accounts payable for that. So there will be Ariba enhancements. These are 2 Ariba enhancements, one for GDPR and another one, I forget already, but GDPR. Let me start with this one. So everyone knows that there's a new privacy law in Europe. It's called GDPR. It's not exclusive to us to travel. This is really should be part of us have already assumed that you've already implemented in some way some kind of consent form to your documentation, especially if you're using emails for marketing and other things. Payments are what we consider low risk because we need this information to issue the payment. So there's implicit consent there. But we need to make sure that people are giving the right notifications. So what's going to happen is this will be in the beginning of 2019. They're hoping to roll it out before the end of 2018, but we're assuming early 2019. So there'll be a new checkboxes. So if the preparer is the traveler themselves, a checkbox will require to confirm acknowledgement of notice. So there'll be a link to say, hey, this is our GDPR notice, the blanket one from UW Privacy Office, and they can go check it out there. GDPR is a privacy law, that the European Union passed. It's similar to the way California views their laws. California is viewed as a very progressive legal state, where if they pass a safety law or a privacy law, a lot of companies will have to just follow their laws because it's more expensive to follow different laws for different states. So GDPR is kind of that instance where the European Union is saying that where they're going to protect their citizens' information. That information is the rights belong to the individual, not to the company that obtained it. So we have to respect that right. So we're just applying that across the board. I'll answer that question as well. Okay, so Sarah says, will this only be on reimbursements for foreign travelers, or will it be for all expense reports? Okay, so that's a tricky question because they consider GDPR to apply to all European residents. They do not define what is European. They do not define what is a resident. So some people are saying that this applies only to people that are residing in the EU. And some people are also saying, well, if they're European and they're also residing in the US, they're still European. So that still applies to them when they're in the US. There is no definition. I don't know if someone's already tried to define it, but I would assume that I would not accept their definition because there is no definition in the law. The way that the University Privacy Office has explained it to us is that it's easier to just apply it to everyone, because there's no way to determine if even a UW employee is in Europe giving us this information, right? Or if you're planning a meeting and you're bringing people in, they could be a professor from Duke University, but they could be in Frankfurt, Germany. You have no idea where they're sending that email from. So that origin from that destination origin information, it all matters. So I know it's important. Some people have already gone forward with the consent. So all that. So instead of trying to parse through what applies, what doesn't apply, and opening up ourselves up to any kind of potential liability, I know a lot of departments have just said, okay, just going to apply to everyone. I know Advancement is taking the same approach, and it's just easier in general, less administrative work. And if the second part, I'm sorry, for the GDPR is going to be, if a preparer is not a traveler, a checkbox will still be provided. It'll be required to confirm acknowledgement that notice was provided to the traveler. You might be wondering, what is notice? What is this consent if you're not familiar? If that information has not trickled down, I know the Privacy Office has talked to all the head of the units to try to explain what this is. The rules, like I said, rules are not specific to travel. It's in regards to any information that can identify that person, any information. And consent template from UW Privacy Office. So if you're not up to speed on this, they do have a template. So you're probably not going to want to create a standard template just for travel. So you probably will be like a template indicating, the information that they're consenting to is information required for payment, like for reimbursements, and for the operation of the program. And you can email them afterwards to give them updates and such. So for the consent, I believe that they want they have to approve it. So I don't know if that's going to be a signature on a page that you guys send them for invitation for travel. The electronic approval, I'm not very. I know that there are people asking about that. I don't know if the privacy office is going to get a software for something like that, or I don't. I know that there are some departments looking into that, but I know we don't have the capabilities for that. You guys may have internally some kind of forms and stuff that you send out. As long as they consent to it, then you should be okay. That's our understanding, because there's a lot of websites already asking for consent for GDPR and such already, just right on the website. Yes, Sarah, you definitely want to contact them. They've asked us to forward that questions to them because it is so complex, especially for your needs. I know I'm setting a lot of things here, but it really depends on your needs. So if you let them know what you're using the information for and how often you'll be collecting this information going forward, they can definitely set you up with some kind of help or some kind of template or guide. So get something in writing. So once you get that template down, you just be using it ongoing for payments in the future for your programs. And for this enhancement for Ariba, we're releasing in early 2019. Like I said, that's what they're hoping for. They are testing it now. They are doing it right now. I'm uncertain how long the testing phase will be, but they said to expect it early 2019. This will just be something to help the department keep track of it. The second thing was payment loop. I forgot earlier. So I think this will be something that you guys are more interested in. So this is currently already in testing phase. This is something that we can see. So I know sometimes if you guys have asked us, we're able to see in some parts. We can see where the payments have gone out. The release will be early 2019 as well. The check information will have the most detail because we will be able to see when it's cleared. We could also see if it's canceled. Direct deposit information will still be limited. So I know people are going to ask us this once it's released. I can't see when it's deposited in the traveler's account. Once again, it's limited by system and privacy roadblocks because that system is the ACH. We send the information to the ACH provider. They send the payments out. They're not sending us that private information back. There's a lot of privacy roadblocks there that there's no exceptions for and we can go around. But we can confirm issuance of the electronic check, like just as we have been, but no confirmation from beneficiary bank. I don't think that's ever going to change unless federal law changes. So, but I'm sure that we will get that question. But just so you know, that we won't be able to provide that information. So here's an example of what it looks like right now. So they are testing it. There are some changes that are going to be to it. This is not exactly what it'll look like. I just wanted to give you guys a taste of this great enhancement they're putting in. I know it took them a long time to try to implement it. So you can see the document information, the check information. I've blurred out because this is an actual expense report. So you can see the check number. You can also see, so it's right here if you guys can't see it on the bottom left-hand corner. The check date that it was issued, the check clear date. So it was cleared on the September 25th, and the check status. So here's the most important part here, the check clear date and the status. There will be also, but the check status will also show canceled as well. So there'll be a few codes that they've told us. You know, most of them you won't see them. For that, they told us mainly it'll be issued. If it's in the being deposited and cleared, I think are the three ones that you'll probably see. Yes, the date that's mailed will be the check date. So September 14th. The check may be printed on the 13th, but it's probably mailed on the 14th. That's the check date. So, you know, they print it the day before, that evening for the next day. So that's when they mail it out. From what they've told us, it's very rare that they will not mail it out on the day that's printed. So I think the only time is, I think, biennium end when they're getting thousands of checks and they have to manually sort through all of them. So, but this is what you'll be able to see. I think that I'm not sure, but I think that it's possibly limited to the preparer, the approver, and the people on the approval flow. It may not be. I know that they're going through all the compliance requirements to see, you know, what is it okay to have it open or not, and all these other things. The accounting section on the bottom right there, it looks a little weird because I've blurred out the budget, but that's exactly what goes to the PAS system that hits your budget. So that's exactly how the system sees it on the back end. So I hope that, so the question is, grid enhancement, will this be part of the new Workday Finance? I believe it's supposed to be. I know they've told us that all these payments and things that go to the finance are supposed to be easily, transferable onto the documents and stuff like that. I'm not certain because I've actually not seen that functionality yet. I hope so. But we're hoping that, and that's a few years down the line anyway, so it will for the next 2 or 3 years at least that you guys can enjoy this. What time of day does UW send their electronic payments? If it says 9:14, was it during business hours or just before midnight? Actually, I don't know. From my understanding, they send it that evening, but I don't know when the ACH actually processes it. So when we send it and when they process it are two different things. I believe that they process it probably during business hours. Or they may send it right away now electronically, but I don't know what the timing on that is. So we hope that this will be helpful. I know that you guys get this question a lot. Yes, this will be for everyone. I just blurred out the type of traveler so that you guys can try to look. I was afraid that people try to look it up to see if they can see it. You guys cannot see this. This is just from the testing team. They can see this. They've been trying to test it. So it's going to be for all payments. The only thing that you won't be able to see is wires. So there's limitations on direct deposits, like I said earlier, and wires will not be in here because that information does not get sent through PAS on the back end the same way. So that information you'll still have to go to AP wires for. They have done everything they can to try to find a way to include the information here, but it may be a future thing. But I think it's far more complicated because the data has to transfer multiple times through Bank of America.
Can you clarify more on GDPR as an only perform visitors?
Oh, so GDPR. Yes. So yes. I'm sorry. For clarification on GDPR, it technically doesn't apply to us. Like for right now, if I gave you information right here, sitting in my office right now, it doesn't apply to me. But the recommendation applies to everyone because you have no idea if that employee is in Europe. We don't know if that means if the data is routed through Europe. What if it goes through a server through Europe? Does that now apply to that data? We have no idea. And European Union is reluctant to give any clarification. I'm sure the Airbnb folks here understand that as well. They've got a lot of those questions, I'm sure, this last year. We don't know. And we talked to Kyle Richard, the privacy office has talked to Attorney General's office. They've done all their due diligence. They've decided that it's just easier to apply to everyone and just get in the habit of just getting this consent. Oh, for oncology patients, it's really up to you to make that decision. Like I said, you definitely want to probably talk to the privacy office. If you're certain that they're from Idaho and they're coming for a research thing and they're sending it to you directly, or you could do it over paper if you know for sure. Maybe you want to send them a form by paper or have them fill it out when they're here. So when they're doing their travel reimbursements, maybe they're handing over the information to you here in person. There's other ways you could probably get around it, especially if there are patients coming in to your office or close to your office anyways for patient care. I know that there is another concern there, especially with patient information, HIPAA compliance and all that other stuff. But we believe that this is separate because that doesn't relate to patient care particularly, but I'm sure, I'm not an expert at HIPAA, so there may be other strategies around it. Yes, Julie, you can design it in a way that it applies to all future transactions. So people are keeping it open-ended. So they're in their template, they're just having it open-ended for not just travel, just in general. Right. So you might want to send them an email in the future for marketing for a future event, right? A future talk, a future conference. So they're just keeping it open-ended for everything. And also we can't remove their information for payments anyways, because we have requirements to keep payment information on file for 7 years, right? There's IRS requirements, state of Washington requirements. and those are more important to us. And then beyond that, we will, of course, if they wanted something purged or something, we'll remove it from the system. But we're already removing things from the system already as it is after record retention requirements, because we don't want that information. So, but yes, you want to make it as broad as possible. But I know that you have to be specific with certain things with the GDPR, but you want to, put everything into one basket and have them sign off on it to make it easier for yourself. Yes. So the payment thing, hopefully that'll be a great thing. Hopefully there's not more bugs in it. Hopefully they'll release it sooner rather than later. And I think that'd be great for everyone. People want an update on the accountable plan time limit. So this is the update. So right now there's no deadline. People know. I know some departments have started to roll out some soft deadlines. So our proposal now, instead of 2 months, will be 3 months. So we did get feedback from everyone. So we're thinking 3 months. I think 3 months, especially because we're a quarter-based university. So 3 months should be sufficient to get the information back to your office, right? So it'll be 3 months back to your office, not 3 months before submission to in the Ariba system. So there's a lot of leeway there. A lot of the other universities are a lot stricter. It has to be in the system within a certain period and stuff like that. So we're giving as much flexibility, as much authority to on your end. You also might be wondering, okay, now that it's on your end, what responsibility do you have? Is there more of a burden on your end? There may be just a little bit more, but we're also going to say there's going to be exceptions, right? So maybe they were in the hospital, maybe they couldn't return, or maybe they went on a sabbatical. There may be other reasons why they could not get the information to your office in a timely manner. There will be exception, so they can just provide a business justification for it. They'll just have to sign off on it. We'll be creating a form for that as well, and they can just sign off on it, and you can just attach it, and that's it. So we'll take their word for it, right? Like a lot of the other exceptions that we have. So it's on file. And this is an IRS rule, so whatever they put, will be audited, and that they'll be subject to any questions from any tax liabilities from the IRS. So we did our end, right? We've fulfilled our obligation, you fulfilled your obligation, and then if they want to have an exception, then they can put it in writing for themselves. Yes, you can, Jamie. We're going to be writing it in a way where you can determine one or the other. So the problem that we have is there's some departments that have perpetual travelers that travel every day, like school, social work, and stuff like that. So, where they have some departments that already turn it in 3 months at a time. Then you also have things like global health, where people are traveling to high-risk countries all over the U.S. I mean, not over the U.S., all over the world. It's a little bit more difficult for them to get it in the system within 3 months. But yes, you can be 3 months in the system. So what we're going to do for the following action items, we're going to be sending another survey like we did last year. So it'll be like our 2018 survey. So we want all your feedback, criticisms, what you hate about it, what you think is great about it. And then we will take that information back to our management team and see, if they're going to sign off on it, if they think it's okay. Because there is going to be some grumbling, of course, with this. But from what we've seen through the expense system, I think 3 months will be perfectly fine, especially with an exception process. That'll be clear, especially if the burden will be on the traveler. So if they turn it in 3 months. If not, then it's on them to deal with the possible ramifications down the line. So we think that there won't be as many pain points with it, and then we'll take that to them. We hope that we'll get the approval early 2019, and like we said previously, we want it to be effective beginning next biennium. Okay, so first in business class, this is something that we have a lot of issues with now. I know that we don't get that many requests for these, but there are some issues. So companies like Delta, United, even Alaska's considering it. They understand how corporate travel programs are, what their policies are. So they have definitely designed their system to game our system. So Delta One is considered both first and business class for international travel. Delta One is issued on fares both for first and business class. That is what so if you have travelers flying with Delta One and they say it's business class, we've seen tickets where it's listed as first class. So they think it's business class, but it's listed as first class. What used to be business class is now what they consider premium coach. Delta One International Business can result in first class legs on domestic flights. So if they're going to France or Europe in general, and they're taking a Delta One flight over there, the domestic flight, if there's a layover in New York, that Delta flight have a first class leg, and it's clearly on the itinerary. It'll say first class on that leg. Maybe they purchased a business class fare, but they're seated in first class. And perception is everything with this. So I know that they need the business class because they need to hit the ground running, or it's a long flight. And, we're thinking about the traveler's health and our 14-hour rule and such, but the itinerary says first class, and that's just a hard stop. There's there's no explaining it away or nothing. So I'll give you an example here. So this is what Delta One looks like. Okay. I know that she looks very peaceful. But is this first class? It looks like first class, definitely. Or is it business class? Like I said before, it's both. Okay, so in some planes, first class has a little bit more space, a little bit, but the seats are exactly the same. You can lay down, you have, full service, alcohol, the whole deal. People that are auditing it or people that are requesting information for freedom of information requests, they're not going to look at it as, you need it for business. They're just going to see the free alcohol and them laying down when they look at Delta's website and see that this is how state employees are traveling. So, there's like newspaper articles. We don't want newspaper articles like this, accusing people of flying really comfortably, right? So we're thinking about policy changes. We may not change anything at all, but the problem is they're getting the approvals, they're booking the flights, and after the approvals and everything, and even on Delta's website it says business, the itinerary says first. So we're thinking about, unless required for ADA compliance, airfare above the class of coach will not be allowed on legs impacted by personal time. So right now people are going using the 14-hour rule and whatnot, taking some personal time on their trip, which is fine, but they're also taking business class back. So if they're going on business, taking personal time after the trip, they should not be taking business class back, right? Because there's no business purpose for it. So we're thinking about further restrictions here. People have had some questions about this, especially if they have personal time before. So if they're qualified for the 14-hour rule, they're going to Paris, but they're taking it a week before the conference, they do not need business class. The 14-hour rule, so there's a consideration of removing it and just rolling the approval into just regular business class approval, or keeping the 14-hour rule and then downgrading business class to premium coach. We don't know how to otherwise to manage it, because United does the same thing. Alaska Airlines is considering changing their domestic first class to business. So it's going to be the same cabin where everyone sits in the front, but they'll have business and first class sitting in the same section, same seats, same everything. So it'll be called first class, but the business class fare, like the letter that you see on the itinerary, will be business. So every airline is doing this. Complimentary upgrades are fine. That's not an issue because it usually has that letter code on there, and we can easily see, like, it's usually a U or it's like a Z or a Q. Like there's different letters there that or A that show, like, if for awarded, that show that it's like a upgrade. That's not a problem. The problem is we see BF, right? So the international leg is B for business, but the domestic leg says F, first class, and it's can't get around it. So there, it's it's not the traveler's fault per se. It's not anything. It's just how the industry is going, and we want to make sure that people that are following policy don't get caught up in it. So, so these are just suggestions. We'll have this in our survey as well. Kelly will send that out. Like I said, this is not something that we're looking forward to changing because not many people use it anyways. But the people that are using it are generally people that are at a higher risk of audit. So we want to make sure that they're covered. Okay. And lodging discounts. So let me change screens here. 1 second. So this is something that we've been working on. I know people have questions because we have the procurement has contracts with lodging locations, or people have individual discounts and such. So wait, give me 1 second. If Sue says if they fly biz first class on a personal travel leg, wouldn't the reimbursement amount be governed by a comparison fare anyway? Yeah, sure. Yes, yeah, it would be. But there are some people that don't always do that. So they go there, but they might take 1 day or something. And there's some gray area where they might not be claiming it. They're saying it's business. So we want to make sure it's clearly out there. So we do get that question because not everyone runs into this all the time, Sue. So you obviously run into it more than we do. I mean, other people do, but some people are not familiar. So we wanted it to just be black and white. So that way, instead of a comparison, maybe they'll just get the coach there and then the business back, or business there for the trip and then coach back on the itinerary, so that you don't need the comparison at all. So there's no disappointment in the expectations that we have and what they're thinking that they're getting. Okay, so for this, we're going to list all the UW locations. So for instance, here, you can see this is the Spokane Center. I don't know what that is, but there is a center there. We'll list all the locations. Here, let me zoom in real quick. So you got all these locations here, and then the blue dots would be, I don't know if they're gonna be blue when we're done with it, but these are all the hotels that we have agreements with. So like here's a Hampton Inn Suites, Seattle Northgate. On the left-hand side here, you'll be able to see how to book it. So people have always asked us, we don't use Christofferson, or how do we get that rate? Especially if you want support for it, or any additional amenities or concessions from the hotel. Then a lot of them have direct booking links. That's what we're trying to get from them right now. So we'll have them all on here. That's what we're hoping for. Give you another example here. Here's like a Stay Pineapple. So the Maxwell, or like, give me an example here. Is this the Watertown? The Watertown, a lot of people have travelers at the Watertown. Maybe you want them to book themselves. Maybe it's something that you guys are not reimbursing, but you want to provide the UW discount. Hasn't been the easiest to do that in the past. So you can see here, it says the code is university, and then also the direct booking link. Right, so you can provide this to them and they can book it themselves. They can get the university rate. Okay, and then the rate availability. So this is another thing that's been an issue in the past. So what's available? Who is it available to? So this says it's available to anyone on UW Business, on personal use. WIPP, which is not us, it's other state schools like Wazoo and Western Washington University. Is it available to Pac-12 members? Yes. Alumni, students, and family. We're not done with it, but we'll be done with it soon, probably in the next few weeks, and then we'll send it out on the listserv. So then you can, when you guys are managing programs, or like saying, hey, we're having people come in, which hotels are near us or which ones have partnerships with us, you can choose them, or you can just even send this to the travelers directly. All right, and we'll have a PDF information link here. So if I click on it, you might not be able to see it, but there'll just be information on the hotel. And then we're trying to make it as seamless as possible. We probably won't have the actual hotel rates on here because that will change from season to season. Because Seattle is a very competitive area for hotels. We want to make it as less confusing as possible. So this is just how do you link it, how to book it, and you can also contact the hotel directly for the rate information. So that way we don't have to update as much. And that way you won't have the wrong information if we don't update it in a timely manner. Okay, so this is something that we'll hopefully have out to you so that you can have that information. And that's it for our travel meeting. I hope that was informative. Thank you for everyone for attending, listening to our information. Please send emails to traveluw@uw.edu if you have any more questions. And Kelly will be sending out the recorded presentation and the slides I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow, but early next week at the latest. Okay? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'll answer. Okay, we're done, but yeah. Yeah. But I'll answer one question. Airbnb per diem comparison. So they don't have anything built in right now for per diem. That is something that they're looking into, building something out specifically for higher education for us. We don't know when that is, so I'm not going to promise anything for that. But for the per diem, make sure to include the service fee and the cleaning fee. Okay? So I know that people look on the Airbnb side, they're like, oh, this is exactly per diem. So make sure they don't pick that one. Most of the time it's not. Most of the time they're lower than per diem, so it's not a big issue. So, but there's people that sometimes try to take advantage of it by picking the nicest place right at per diem. But that can be an issue. But then again, it's usually acceptable because if they're in a nicer area that's closer to the conference location or the meeting location, they're also within 5 miles, right? So then they have the conference exception anyways. So is it possible for travelers to pay their own portion on Airbnb if they shared? Split payments.
So split payments is possible. Yes, splitting payments is something that's possible. We're in the process of building out a product on the business side. It's easier if you're booking a leisure trip, but Francis and I can send out some information on how you could do that. Maybe we should include that in the slide deck, just our email addresses for any questions. We're happy to sidebar.
Okay. Yeah, so they're well aware that they actually purchased a company that does payment splitting, so they are integrating that. That's for sure. That is, I know they can already do that, right? For personal, they can send a notification out and personally do that. Domestic and international includes, yes, Chase. So it's both domestic and international. Yeah, Chimmy, they can do that for personal. They just can't do that for business yet. So if they're doing a personal Airbnb, they can do that. And we've also talked their ear off and told them that we would love to be able to split the personal and the business portion. So if they take an Airbnb at their conference location, right, and they have 2 days of personal, that way they can that we don't have to prorate it or do anything. So they'll just say this is the business portion and personal. They are well aware. All their clients have been talking their ear off on that, so they're aware, and we hope to see that kind of enhancement in the future. But regardless, we still think it's going to be a great thing. And if they want to book personal, they can still just book 2 separate Airbnbs, right? They can book the business portion and then book just the same Airbnb for the personal. And they could probably even contact the host to ask them to waive the cleaning fee because they'll just be there and stuff like that. We've heard of good things. People are already doing that, so it should not be an issue. Yep. Like I said, we're looking at all the options, try to make things easier. Hi, Tracy. Are there more training classes coming up? So, okay, so there is an issue with the training classes. So for the in-person training classes for eTravel, that room is now off limits because it's been just like HRP when they got transitioned over to HRP and they were using it for all their training and all their testing purposes. It's going to be requisitioned by finance transformation as well. So we may still be able to get some classes in there. We can try to beg and plead them, but we're thinking about doing it remotely or doing them smaller classes in our office. And then for the other classes, for the policy and procedures, we will have more of those classes. We just haven't scheduled all of them yet. They are scheduled, but they're not up on the website yet. So we will get them up.
Yeah, for travel policy, they are on policy and procedures, but not eTravel yet.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, policy procedures. Kelly said they're already up, but the eHands travel, they're not. You can contact us for individual training in the meantime while we're trying to figure that out. It was just happened something recently, so we had to cancel all our future appointments for that. Like I said, you can email us. I'll also include the information for Jake and Francis for their information. So if you're curious on how to use Airbnb for work, they've been great. So we hope that you guys can use it in that instance. So you saw the duty of care thing. So if you book on there, then David from Office of Global Affairs can see them traveling. All right. Well, thank you. I will stop the sharing now and answer you guys' emails later today, or see you guys at the tower if you guys are going to show up there, ask more questions. How do I stop the recording? Oh, here we go.